Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. We're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, which is entitled The Activities of Lord Rishabhadev, verse 8. So the only thing I was looking is how these verses are strangely written a little bit, so I don't know why that is so. because in the Bhagavad Gita you have a nice verse, and then you know how to read it, but here is a little bit different. But okay, let's see if I'll make it. Atasamira. Just see the verse. Thanks. Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikarshana jatogram Davanalastad tadve tadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikrashana jatogram Davanalastad vanam sorry Alelihana sahatena dadaha Ataha samira vega viduta Venu vikrashana jatogram Davanalastadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha. If someone knows how to read better, they can. Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikrashana jatogram Davanalastadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikarshana jatogra Davanalastadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikarshana jatogra Davanalastadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha. Wanna try? Atasamira vega viduta Venu vikarshana jatogra Davanalastadvanam Alelihana sahatena dadaha. Thank you. Ata thereafter Samira vega by the force of the wind Viduta tossed about Venu of bamboos Vikarshana by the rubbing Jata produced Ugra fierce Davanalaha a forest fire Tat dead Vanam forest near Kutakchala Alelihanaha devouring all around. Saha, with. Tena, that body. Dadaha, burned to ashes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. While he was wandering about, a wild forest fire began. This fire was caused by the friction of bamboos, which were being blown by the wind. In that fire, the entire forest near Kutakachala and the body of Lord Rishabhadev were burned to ashes. Purport. Such a forest fire can burn the external bodies of animals, but Lord Rishabhadev was not burned. Although he apparently seemed so, Lord Rishabhadev is the supersoul of all living entities within the forest, and his soul is never burned by fire. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Adayoyam, the soul is never burned by fire. Due to Lord Rishabhadev's presence, all the animals in the forest were also liberated from material engagement. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I didn't prepare for today's class, so it will be quite spontaneous. But I think that it's a continuation of the points that Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita talk about to make us understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when He appears in this material world, He does not appear in a material body. So just like Krishna, He appeared in His Satchitananda form. So in the same way, Lord Rishabhadev, He also appeared in His Satchitananda form. So, and He always performs leelas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way, Krishna, when He was leaving this planet, He also made a pastime. I don't know who threw an arrow at His heel. I forgot that, but that's the way He departed. And He also, to bewilder the people or the populace, He also left some kind of a body behind Him. So in this similar way, Lord Rishabhadev, when he entered the forest, apparently his body was burned, but actually it was not. It was also a pastime or a lila, but he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, the super soul of all living entities, especially within the forest. And he also, whatever happens like with him in this material world, whatever activities he performs, everyone benefits out of them. So everything in any incarnation of the Lord, whatever the incarnation does, wherever the incarnation appears, and whoever gets in contact with the incarnation of the Lord or Krishna Himself, when He descends to this material world, everyone gets benefited. So therefore, the Lord is considered to be all good always, and He always does. Everything what He does is good, because it benefits absolutely everyone. And He's like He's actually behind everything, and He's our well-wisher, as the Bhagavad Gita says, in many ways, not just because He's situated as a super soul in everyone's heart, but also because whenever He wants to benefit the living entities of the material world, everything actually, what He does by Himself. Of course, sometimes He sends His representatives, but they are in some way His incarnations or representations, or have some Shakti of the Lord. But why I'm mentioning this, because even like in this current age of Kali Yuga, when Lord Krishna wanted to appear as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is interesting how the Lord in the form of Advaita Acharya, who is actually the Mahavishnu and Sadashiva incarnation, he prayed to Ashila, who is a Vishnu form of the Lord, for the Lord to descend. And then when the Lord descended, he gave an example of the religious principles of what people in the material world should do so that they can benefit in the sense of attaining their constitutional position. So everything that the Lord does is very wonderful. And also last time when I was giving a lecture, which was on a previous chapter, also I had a verse which talked about how special the body of Lord Rishabhadev was, because it was about him passing his stool. And if you remember, even when he was passing his stool and urinating around, and he was doing that because he left his services as a king, and therefore he gave the instructions to his sons, and then he wandered around the planet. And while wandering like that, he also he was like a avaduta and a madman. So, and then he also saw that other people were not being nice to him because he was not acting as normal people would, like according to the social customs of the area. So they would, in a way, offend him or hit him and so on. So he realized that if he goes on like this, he will encounter more and more people and they will all behave towards him in this way. So therefore he decided to just be in one place, like a python, it was described. And then he would just, like, whatever would came, he would consume in a way, whatever food he would get. And then he was also passing his stool, and whenever he would do that, his stool was like smelling aromatically. So we can see that the quality of a spiritual body is not the same as a material body. And also it's good to know all these things about the Satchitananda form of the Lord, because the same form we have also as spirit souls. So therefore the first lesson that we have to learn in spiritual life, and it's first for many reasons, and that is that we are not this body and that we are a spirit soul. And why? For many reasons, because only when we understand that we are not this body, actually the pure devotional service starts. Only from that platform we can actually serve the Lord. So how to understand whether we are a spiritual body? We engage in spiritual activities, and then by engaging in the spiritual activities, little by little, we can understand. And also Lord Rishabhadev, he said that the people, actually the human form of life, is meant for performing austerities, and that humans, whoever got a human form of life, should voluntarily accept austerities and penances to advance spiritually. And then we also mentioned in that lecture that in any case you will have to perform austerities or penances in this world. Whatever you do, you have to make some kind of an endeavor, and you will, of course, maybe feel some pleasure in some activities, but in some activities you will feel pain, or you will have to make some hardship and so on. So you cannot avoid it. And even if you enjoy, you cannot enjoy unlimitedly. Even if you like to eat very well, if you eat more than you can, the capacity of your stomach can handle, you will suffer definitely. So even the capacity of enjoyment in this material body is very, very limited. But we only know about material enjoyment, and we want to be happy because the soul is seeking for happiness. It's like it's our essence in a way, that because Satchitananda, which means that the body, our body, and the spiritual soul as such, because there's no difference between the soul and the soul's body, is that it is internal, it is full of knowledge and full of bliss. And because of this quality of bliss, we are always searching for bliss absolutely everywhere. And that's why the whole creation of the material world is moving in this way that it moves, because every one of us wants to be happy here. So whatever we do, we actually do it to become happy one day. But the true happiness is when we realize that we are actually spirit, just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was also thinking like how it's very how we don't believe it sometimes, because we are too much connected to this body to have this understanding. But actually we can do many more, like a lot of more things that this body can do. I think it is described, I forgot where, but that the spirit soul is more powerful than the sun. And we know how small it is, because in the Bhagavad Gita it is described the measurement of the soul, which is, maybe some of you know by heart, 10,000 times tip of the hair. If the hair is cut into 10,000 pieces, then this piece would be the size of the soul. But this soul is very powerful, and it has a certain body. And also, like, if you analyze a little bit the descriptions in the scriptures and the soul itself, the soul always occupies a certain body. It can be very, very small, like an ant, and also it can be very, very big, like, for example, an elephant. That's what comes to my mind. But it always, like, pervades this consciousness over this body. So in the same way, I'm just trying to say how it's magical. So in the same sense that we hear about Krishna, of course, the spirit soul is small, and Krishna is like everything comes from him. So it's not in that sense comparison of the quantity, but it's in the quality that we are the same. So all these qualities that the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests, actually we possess, but in a very, very small quantity of it. And this is something that actually we should be joyful about and try to explore it in a way. And when we perform austerities and penances, we can actually see that there is something more that we are in our consciousness, in our abilities, than this body. Because the austerities actually make you forget about this body and then see that there is something more here. So that's why the Bhagavad Gita tries to encourage us, in the sense, because everyone is afraid of dying. I mean, even if a person says he or she is not afraid and has no spiritual knowledge, maybe the person is deluding itself, but everyone is afraid in a sense, because we don't know what is our next destination. And some people describe death as disappearing completely. So I don't know, for me that would be very frightening if someone would tell me. And usually that's actually the explanation I got as a kid. I was asking my mom, she's an atheist, and my dad is an atheist. And I was asking them, I think I was like 7 or 8. And then I asked them, like, what happens after we die? And then they said, like, well, nothing, you just disappear. And for me, it was not even like that I disappear, but that my mom and dad would disappear, because I was a kid and you were like attached to your parents, and then I would have nightmares of them disappearing, and then I tried to imagine how it is to disappear. That was, don't go there. That was very, very frightening. So, but usually that's what people today, they explain it like this, especially if they're atheists. And I was just watching a movie the other day, which was talking about afterlife. And this lady, she was... I mean, maybe it's a story of fiction, but it has some truth, because it's based on what people have experienced actually when they almost die, like near-death experiences. So she was somewhere on some island, and there was a tsunami, and then she was she drowned a little bit, but someone rescued her eventually. But she swallowed a lot of water, and they were trying to revive her. So there's a scene in the movie where she actually has some visions. She actually sees some souls around and so on. And she has a sense of weightlessness, and that that she left her body, and that there is like something going on, something bigger than this material sphere. And then she came to life. And then whomever she wants to talk to about her experience, everyone avoids it, because everyone's actually, they're not sure. They think that you're actually crazy if you have such experiences, and then you approach someone and you want to talk about it. So the person who has no spiritual experience, no spiritual practice, actually doesn't know what to tell you. So that was the case with her. She approached, her friends and colleagues, and what they said to her is like, no, it was some kind of a, how they say, connection in the brain that happened while you were unconscious, and therefore, and even the scientists, they say that I don't know how much time from death that death occurred to the body, that there is an activity of the brain. So they measured it. So whenever someone says I had a near-death experience, they then say, well, it's the activity of the brain, because the brain can be active even if the body is totally kaput, as we would say, and so on. So these are some kind of explanations. But actually they don't know. And I just find it fascinating how, today's scientists, they base everything on proof, but they cannot prove everything. And also, they had to build up so many machines in order to see certain things. But still, even if they see certain things, their conclusion is not always correct. Because it's the same with the atom. Like first they thought that this was the smallest, yeah. What did you say? Yeah, particle. He's better. Particle. So the smallest particle, and then they saw that actually it is electron, proton, and neutron, right? The smaller than the atom, and probably they found something else, but I didn't go so far into exploring what. So every time a scientist, they do discover something, but it's always something beneath that is there's always something more than they can see. And they just need more and more machines to find out. But what Srila Prabhupada came to teach us, thank God, other religions as well, but sometimes you have a feeling like that other religions are also lost. But because, for example, my grandmother, she would go to church. She declares herself as a Catholic, and she would go for Christmas and be in a mass and so on. And then once I asked her, like, don't you believe in God? And she said no. And I said, like, why do you go to church? Because everyone else goes. So that was the explanation. I was like, wow. So there are so many people who do that. They just go to church because it's a custom, but actually they don't believe in anything. And also, I find it sometimes difficult to understand the priest, at least in Croatia. They talk funny for me. And I was always sitting there and being bored and thinking, like, why are we here? Because nobody understands them. But then you have, like, Srila Prabhupada, who came and brought us, like, really beautiful knowledge. And because I was always philosophical, mostly, in the sense that I was always wondering why things are the way they are. So I liked philosophy very much. And I remember I read this book. It's called Sophie's World. Maybe some of you read it. Anyway, it's a very nice book for someone who likes philosophy, because this girl, I think her father is leaving her letters, and in each letter there is a certain viewpoint of a philosopher. Like, for example, I don't know from where he started, but let's say that he started with the Aristotle. So, and then he goes, until 15th, 16th century, like all the major philosophers. And what you realize, like reading that book, and also studying philosophy, if you studied it, that every philosopher has a different opinion. I was thinking, like, wow. So this one says this, and then comes the other one, and that's what Srila Prabhupada actually explains in Srimad Bhagavatam. that's the way it is in this world. Some person comes and says, this is like this, and then the other person comes and then says, no, it's not like this, it's like this. And then the third person comes and then it goes like this all the time. So very, very different philosophers. And with some, you agree, like there is some logic here, you can understand, but with some where like, I don't know, it's very, very, like for example, I forgot his name, but I remember I was reading these thoughts of this philosopher who was saying that actually we don't exist. I was thinking, like, how is that possible that we don't exist, but we actually exist? So these are like these mind games. And with Srila Prabhupada's books, what I gained, like, for example, while reading all this, is clarity. Like, there is clarity in Srila Prabhupada's books, there is logic. And he can actually, win all the arguments of all the other philosophers, and by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we can understand all the other religions as well. And I was always very curious, like about other religions, and also like if you read Quran now, or if you read the Bible or whatever scriptures, these are two most familiar for me. You can see that actually they're right, but only if you read first. That was my experience. I'm talking about my experience now. Only if you read Srimad Bhagavatam first. Then you have like this clarity, like, oh yes, they're going in this direction, but because of some things, because that's the way it is in this world, nothing is perfect. They're not getting to the right conclusion, but the steps towards it are good. And there are certain moral principles by which they live, which purify them, and they're all also good. But the most information, the fullest amount of information that we get from Srimad Bhagavatam. So I never found any other scripture that would describe God in this way, that it would give you a name of God, who is his mother, his father, who are his friends, his girlfriends, what does he do, what does he eat, like all the intimate stuff. There is nowhere I found that kind of a description. Everyone talks about God as usually an old man in the sky, which punishes people. That's what most people think about God. Because if God exists, then why do the bad things happen to good people? That's always a question. And that is because they don't have the concept of karma. They only think of this life as all in all, and then you can go only to heaven or to hell. And also, like, what kind of a God would God be if he would, how you say, I cannot find the word in English, but if he would condemn someone for eternal hell. Like, and the Vedas are very nice in that connection, because there is hell, there is heaven, there is spiritual world, there are earthly planets, and yes, you go to all these places, but you go there according to your karma, and then when the karma is spent, then you go back to earth, and then you try again to realize that actually you're a spirit soul, and that you have to transcend all of this. So in that sense, it's also like very merciful, because we have to be accountable for like things that we do in our life, but still there is always like an open door for making your life better. And Srila Prabhupada mercifully gave us all these stories so that we can actually focus our mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you can see that there is a certain pattern in the sense that it talks about very similar principles all the time. For example, Lord Rishabhadev, he has his pastimes, but usually the principles that, for example, when he instructs his sons, he talks about the similar principles as, for example, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So every incarnation has something. Of course, the purpose why they appear, for every one of them is different, but the religious principles of us being the soul, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that we have to develop a relationship, serve him, and many other principles are always there. So because we have small intelligence. I talk for myself, and because I forget all the time. So you have all these stories to like constantly remind you, like, okay, this is Krishna, and his body is transcendental, because he says in the Bhagavad Gita that whoever knows the transcendental nature of my appearance, activities, and disappearance will reach liberation. He will not, or she will not be born here in this material world again. So all these stories are here for us to remind us of all this, and also to remind us who are we in our nature, that we are spirit souls, that in quality we are quite similar to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we should be joyful about it and look forward to it, and therefore there is no fear, and we should just like engage in the activities of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because we have realized that by watering the root of the tree, we are actually helping everyone. We are feeding all the branches, all the leaves, and so on. Because if we serve the Supreme Enjoyer, that is the only way by which we can actually truly enjoy. So we find that all these like elements in all these stories, and they teach us like of our true nature. Yeah. So, and because of our, just one more point, and because of our forgetfulness of all these things, this is something that will be described in further verses, which say that even though Lord Rishabhadev performed these wonderful activities, even though he gave these wonderful instructions, the kala, the time effect will come, which means that other persons will come and they will misunderstand the philosophy. And in the end, they will transform the philosophy, the religious principles, in something that is considered to be atheism. So you will read about that. But that's also one of the reasons why we need to repeat all this all the time, so we don't forget. And also that's one of the reasons, and Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that when there is a decline, of the religious principles, then he appears again and again, millennium after millennium, to establish them. So these are also the reasons why he appears, and why we have so many incarnations. And all that he does is for the benefit of the living beings. Because maybe some of you can tell why this material world was created. That's a question for you. Anyone? Yes.
Yeah, because we want to control something and be the enjoyer. And since that's not possible, if we know that Krishna is actually the supreme enjoyer and controller of everything, he is put into the situation that he has to create this in that sense. But of course we know that it's eternal also.
Yeah, that's true. Anyone else? Why this material world is created? You want to say why? Chakra Prabhu.
Gives us a chance to realize who we are.
Yeah.
And because of practice.
Yes. So it's both, like what you said. I mean, yeah, Krishna is forced. I mean, Krishna is not forced. He just fulfills everyone's desires. So that's why he creates this material world. And also that we can get liberated, like Chakra Prabhu said. And then he gives the Vedas. And Vedas are the guidelines for the living entities, so they can go back home, back to Godhead. And Vedas are written for everyone, so even persons in the Tamaguna, and in the mode of passion, and in the mode of goodness, and those who are on the transcendental level. So for everyone, so that all of them can benefit from their instructions, and that can get purified and advance spiritually. It's like what is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the spiritual evolution, not the evolution we have today that is propagated by the scientists, but there is also spiritual revolution of the soul. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai, Shri Guru Nitai Ki Jai. So the evolution of the soul through various species of life. Like, actually, it's quite interesting. I mean, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada also talks about communism, spiritual communism. So I'm just saying how all the concepts that actually exist today in all the philosophies, in all the religions, can be found in Srimad Bhagavatam. But so the conclusion of my lecture would be that Krishna is so kind that he comes in so many incarnations to explain to us the principles of religion, to show that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that even though he performs pastimes in this material world, he is not an ordinary person, which all the descriptions point to. And this also indicates for us that we are his part and parcels, and we also have the same quality as him, and we should be therefore joyful and try to voluntarily perform austerities and penances so that we can actually understand our constitutional position. So that's all for me. Do you have any questions or comments or something to add? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for your spontaneous but very wonderful lecture.
Thanks.
When you were, like you were mentioning many times that actually Krishna is doing every single thing for our best, and if we get to know more and more that Krishna is actually our best friend, then we can understand actually he's doing everything for our best. But then also, of course, it's very important to know that we still have karma, and that if we're suffering or if we did something wrong or something, that we really have to change and have a look at ourselves. So how to put these two things together, that we really have this consciousness, actually everything is happening for our best, but we don't have to be indifferent like to whatever.
Yes, I'm just trying to remember who was this person I was reading about, but I can't remember at the moment. I don't know from where I heard it, but I know some concepts that I want to say regarding your questions, and that is that who was that person? Anyway, that what you said is true, but if you Krishna arranged everything for you, even your karma, because according to the past activities, he's sanctioning things to happen to you in this life, right? So in a way, you are desiring, like that's the independence and the activity of the soul. Free will is actually the independence, but from free will we manifest certain desire, and actually the desire is the activity of the soul. And whatever desire we manifest, Krishna arranges it. I think maybe if you followed Keshava Swami, he has this, like he paints it like a triangle, soul's desire, and then material nature, and then God. But actually as a super soul, because he hears your desire, and then according to your karma, he manifests through the gunas of material nature what you have desired. So I think he said like that, for example, some person desired that he wanted to be to live in a very big and opulent like house, and then he got born as a dog in that house. Or for example, if someone was spiritually elevated, then he said an example of Bhaktivedanta Manor because it looks beautiful. So, and then he lived in this beautiful house, and so something like that. So, but the point is that that's the Supreme Lord, he manifests everything through the material energy for us here. So in a way, you have this free will. So this is the only thing by which you can like change your karma. And actually, what I was thinking about it because I was doing this I have one supervisor, and we were discussing some things regarding this new age stuff where people like desire certain things and then they wait for it to manifest in their reality. But that's actually a lot of truth in it, because that's what we do. Maybe it won't come in the way they always picture that everything like that they imagine will manifest materially, and they have material desires in that sense. But this is this manifestation of the free will, and that's how the universe functions. Universe is very neutral, so you have to like, that's what the Bhagavad Gita also teaches you, that you have to positively focus on something. And we focus on Krishna, We focus on a certain relationship that inspires us, and then we want this to manifest in our reality one day. So that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever you think at the time of death, that is what you will achieve. So in that sense, there is this aspect of the free will, which changes the karma, and this is the thing what you have a power to influence. Like you have a power to influence your mind, right? You have to control your mind. That's the Bhagavad Gita talks about it. Your thoughts, your activities, your words. So this is what we do, and then according to this, Krishna gives. So that's one aspect of it, and the other aspect is that if you're really pure and you have developed love of Godhead and you only want to serve Krishna, you want to give pleasure to Krishna, Krishna does everything. Like for example, that's why I can't remember who this person was that I read about. So this person was so powerful. I don't know if it was, I don't think it was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but somewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita I read it. But the person was so powerful and even could manifest mystic powers that so many yogis want to achieve. But he didn't do anything because he just wanted to serve Krishna. But who manifested the mystic powers for him? It was Krishna. So it's like Mrigari the hunter, when he was listening to the instructions of Narada Muni. This is a simple example. So he told him, but if I break my bow, how will I feed my family? How will I live? Because this is my way of maintaining myself. And he said, you don't worry about the thing, you just take Tulasi Devi, you plant Tulasi Devi in your home, you perform spiritual activities, you chant, and everything will be taken care of. And that's how it happened then. The village found out that he transformed, he became a saintly person, and then everyone brought him gifts so that he can actually eat and his family can eat and he can maintain himself. So yeah, Krishna takes care of everything. He gives you also what you want, but if you really want him, then everything is arranged by him. That's how Prahlad Maharaj was saved from all these perils that he was affected by his father, because he just had faith and he just prayed to Krishna. It was that samadhi. And then Krishna just protected him. Nothing could happen to him. The same example is by Haridas Thakur when he was beaten on 21 or 22, I don't know how many, marketplaces. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he was the one actually who took all the hits, because he was taking the hits of the other people, and then he showed his back to Haridas Thakur. So this is what's going on. So in that sense, like Krishna always takes care of you. He takes care even of the people who are atheistic in a way. He gives them what they want. He's always there, but he doesn't show himself in the way that he shows himself to a devotee, and how he is manifested in our lives. So my recommendation based on what I have read so far is that yes, we have to try our best, but if we try our best in developing love towards Krishna, if we get this feeling where our focus is completely Krishna and we just want to serve him and please him, everything else will be taken care of. Your karma will be taken care of, and so on. You don't have to read the horoscope at all because Krishna changes everything, and yeah, so that's the way it is. Do you want to say something to that?
It's very nice explanation.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
I like the example of your grandmother, how she's going to the church but she doesn't know what. And I was thinking, I often feel like your grandmother, actually, I don't know, like, why am I doing this? So maybe my question is how to be more conscious while I'm doing spiritual practice. Like, for example, I'm coming to a program or festivals and to deeply understand why I'm doing this.
Yeah, I think that the books can help you to understand, because if you read Srila Prabhupada's books and the books of the six Goswamis, then you are like, oh wow, I'm doing this actually every day. and then I see the significance, and then I see like why Srila Prabhupada created the program the way he created it. And for example, when we sing this Samsara Davala in the morning, this melody in which we sing actually is a melody of Krishna waking up in the morning. So everything that we do regarding the deities and our worship is somehow connected to Krishna Lila. And as more and more as we read about Krishna Lila, we understand that everything is very significant. And then in Hari Bhakti Vilas, for example, it is described the glories of a conch shell, the glories of the bell, the glories of the incense, the glories of the giviks, and so on. And then when you read about that, and then when you do it, then you have more consciousness about why you do it. And that's why we have to read about the holy name of the Lord, because we very often, me, I'm thinking about me, we forget like what is the significance, the importance of our chanting, and like why we are doing it, why we should go deeper. That's why Sachinandana Swami, he wrote so many books. So yeah, you have to be knowledgeable, possess knowledge to perform practice properly, to one day lose the knowledge and forget that Krishna is actually God and just be spontaneously in love with him. So that's the whole purpose of it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention and tolerance. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That's why my family is in shock, because now I am Hare Krishna. Not even Catholic, but Hare Krishna. It's too much. Huh? I had another question. Sometimes, like, I was wondering sometimes, what exactly it makes actually that we don't have to take rebirth again if we understand that Krishna's nature and appearance, because that's quite. Hari Prasad probably said something about that in Loka, maybe if he was there. He said that actually you should not think about it at all or wish it. And when you stop desiring to go back home, back to Godhead, and when you just want to serve Krishna, then you actually go back. What is not desiring? Yeah, I know. You just serve Krishna. Maybe that's like, maybe that's for Krishna and Vrindavan. Maybe for Vaikuntha you can, I don't know, because it's more like one level, so there you know he's God. That's my speculation, but that's what he said. Because we always want to control everything, like for example, we want a formula. Okay, everything is mercy. So if you serve the devotees and actually, yeah, that's what we talked about, that if you want to get the mercy of Radharani, you have to get, no, if you want the mercy of Krishna, you need the mercy of Radharani, if you want the or like that. And if you need the mercy of Radharani, then you need the mercy of Chaitanya. And if you want the mercy of Chaitanya, you need the mercy of Nityananda. And how do you get the mercy of Nityananda? If you go and serve Jagai and Mother. And Jagai and Mother are everyone in this world. So if you serve them, like the ones who are not devotees, then you get to Krishna. That's like preaching, I guess.
Jai